how about Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas? That's the biggest upset I want to say in sports history. I'm not quite as well versed as you as all the sports, but that was a very very big upset. Over
Well, it's right up there with the Miracle on Ice. Okay, I
exactly,
mean,
and you
just
covered both events.
yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, well, obviously, Al Michaels called the game, the hockey game, but I was sent there to do the interview.
yeah, yeah,
And yes, I covered both events. I and recognize and remember the very first live prize fight I ever went to was Cassius Clay versus Sonny Liston in Miami Beach, February 25, 1964. And that fight was called at that time the biggest upset in boxing history. So as I was sitting in Tokyo looking at what was now a foregone conclusion in the eighth, ninth, and 10th rounds of Tyson Douglas, I was gripped with this uncanny realization. Oh my God, the first fight you ever went to with lawn mowing and car washing money was the biggest upset in the history of boxing. And now you're calling the fight that will succeed it as the biggest upset in the history of boxing. At a moment like that, you can't avoid thinking that this is meant to be. I was supposed to be here, and I think obviously I was like everybody else. I thought there was no chance that Buster could win the fight, and I thought that this was going to be a bloodletting, and that Mike would tear him up. But if you look back, critically at all of the circumstances, what was going on in Mike's personal life, and the fact that his trainers were now inexperienced people without a deep and thoughtful background as trainers, and that his life was chaotic, and a lot of troublesome things were going on. If you looked at all of that, and then you looked at how he had performed in the last 6 or 8 fights leading up to that against bigger, taller, right-handed fighters who could bring the right hand over the top, etc. He went the distance with James Quick Tillis. He went the distance with Mitch Blood Green. He went to the last 10 seconds with Jose Ribalta. He went the distance with Tony Tucker. He never really threatened or hurt Tucker a single time. There was a lot of evidence leading into the fight that you could have looked at and said, well, he's not going to dominate Douglas. He didn't do anything special against these other guys. And Douglas maybe is the best of them. He might be the worst of them, but he might be the best. You just don't know. And then early on, from the first round on, it was obvious Douglas could land his jab. He brought the right hand directly over the top, which made it very difficult for Mike to see it from his height and his crouch, et cetera, et cetera. And Douglas wasn't just winning the rounds; he was dominating. And Mike was taking more and more punishment. So by the time the knockout takes place, that's not really a shock knockout. Now, seen in a vacuum, Buster Douglas knocked out Mike Tyson. Yeah, that's a shock. If you had gone out that night and hadn't stayed home to watch the fight in the United States, and you learned it from broadcast news or in the newspaper, yeah, absolutely, an absolutely mind-blowing shock. But if you saw everything that I saw, and you sized it all up within the context of all those factors, no, it wasn't a shock. It was coin of the realm, and of course, it ruined Douglas's life because he was not ready for that kind of a win, and not ready for the acclaim and the celebration that went with it. But it wasn't a hard fight for Buster to win, and he won it obviously very clearly and decisively.
What did you make of Mike Tyson's I don't want to say excuse, but claim that when he dropped Buster Douglas, that Buster Douglas got a long count? What do you make of that?
I didn't think it was a long count. Replay didn't suggest that it was a long count. The only reason there was a long count controversy was because Don King was Mike's promoter, and Don was going to do anything and everything he could to wrangle boxing authorities and use his political clout and his boisterous style and his threats to try to win the argument. But no, I never thought for a second that that was too long a count.
Okay. All right.